Well, we just want to welcome y'all to Grief and Addiction, the missing piece to true recovery and lasting freedom. And so we just want to thank you for being here with us. Vicky and I have spent a lot of years working with people and discovered that there is a massive misunderstanding about grief. In fact, there's kind of like a cultural mythology around it. The founder of GR, John James, he put it this way. He said, we've been taught a great deal about how to acquire things, but nothing about what to do when we lose them. And so most of us, we see correctly death and divorce as losses, and they are. They're really, really deep, horrible, painful losses. But there's more than 40 other kinds of losses that we experience in a lifetime that are usually either minimized or completely ignored. And so our mission is to start naming these hidden losses and shine a light on the pain they cause whenever they're not processed in a healthy way. And so this month, we are highlighting the relationship between grief and addiction. So if you or maybe someone you love has struggled with addiction, then you're very aware of just how frustrating and painful that battle can be. And
Yeah.
so you might be wondering, well, why do I keep falling back into the same patterns? Why do I sabotage the progress that I make? And so we're really excited to share this with you because we really feel like it is foundational to emotional healing and mental health. And first, we just want to throw out a couple of things to really get the most out of tonight. We would, if at all possible, love to invite you to have your camera on. I know sometimes people, they're kind of doing stuff or they might be eating or whatever, but if any at all possible, we would love to be able to see you and connect with you. This workshop is going to be about 90 minutes with the last 30 minutes set aside for questions, although we answer all questions. So however long it takes to answer your questions, that's truly how long it lasts. But we take the last 30 minutes and set that aside for whatever questions you have. So please feel free to interact in the chat with any questions that come up, and then we'll make sure to go back and look at them. And anything else that you want us to address in the Q&A at the end.
Awesome. So welcome to a life-changing discovery. Um, Tonight we are going to talk about the missing piece to true recovery. Sorry, we have people jumping in, which is awesome. And trying to get my chat open so I can see. Okay. Excellent. Okay, welcome. So thank you. I'm trying to man the people coming in at the same time. Welcome, everybody. And if you are able to have your camera on, that would be great, like Dan said. And if not, that's okay too. We just like to see you and want to connect and want to make sure that you feel comfortable to ask any questions at any time during the chat, and we'll get to those after. But we're very excited, so excited actually tonight. We decided about 5 months ago to start doing monthly webinars with a focus on a theme, because there's so many things that grief is connected to. And so this theme tonight is very close to my heart, and we're going to talk more about that. But what we're going to do is we're going to talk tonight about the missing piece to true recovery and why healing grief is the key to breaking free from addiction. And we're going to discover how to stop a cycle of self-sabotage, which of course helps us to step into true freedom. So like Dan said, if you or someone you love has struggled with addiction, you know how frustrating and painful that battle can be. And tonight we're going to show you something that most recovery programs completely miss. And that is, there is a hidden piece of the puzzle that makes all the difference between struggling in survival mode and actually experiencing freedom from addiction, grief, and self-sabotage. So by the end of this webinar tonight, you'll understand how unresolved grief is at the root of almost every addiction, and how healing that grief will set you free to experience a life that you've always hoped for.
Yeah. And so just something to kind of do a very quick check-in. You are in the right place if if you've ever struggled with addiction, self-sabotage, or any unhealthy coping mechanisms, if you feel like you're constantly fighting the same battle, even while you're in the midst of recovery, if you've ever experienced loss, trauma, or grief that you haven't fully processed, if you're ready for just experiencing a breakthrough, just one that leads to real lasting freedom, if any of this resonates at all, if any of this sounds familiar, we just want you to know you're not alone in this at all. Maybe you've tried different recovery programs, or self-help methods, or just sheer willpower, um, and nothing seems to really truly stick. And so we just want to put out a question to you. What if the real problem isn't just addiction? What if addiction is actually the symptom of something deeper, right? So if you're tired of kind of white knuckling through life, if you want something more than just managing an addiction, but actually experiencing true freedom, then keep listening, because you are truly in the right place.
So, we are here to help you in your journey to transformation. And before we dive in, I would like to tell you a little something about me. I'm Vicky Hagedorn, and my journey with grief and healing isn't just something that I teach, it is something that I live. Absolutely. I have seen firsthand how grief, when left unprocessed, will destroy lives, relationships, and even the process of recovery itself. And I've also seen the other side, how healing grief can set people free in ways that they never imagined, including myself, because this is helping people heal at the root, not just focusing on the symptoms. And we're going to talk more and more about that. But my journey really started with recovery from alcohol and an eating disorder. I just celebrated, oh gosh, I think 32 years sober. I got sober in 1992. And, I discovered the grief recovery method when I was about 10 years sober. It was in 2003 that I discovered this method, and it changed everything about my sobriety and about my recovery. I had spent a lot of time in program, in therapy, a lot of money and time, and all of those things helped me to a point. But this process really is what got me to the root of why I was using food and trying to control my emotions. And I remember first hearing about this, I thought, I don't need that. And then when I first heard that the definition of grief really is conflicting feelings caused by the end of a familiar pattern of behavior, I realized I've literally been grieving my whole life. And I've
Mm,
never even talked about that in any of the therapy, any of the programs, and any of that. And as I embarked on that, it really opened up and changed everything. And so I am excited because it was so powerful in my life that I decided right then and there, this is what I'm supposed to do. And I got certified. And I've really had the honor of walking alongside people who are stuck in painful cycles. And whether that's addiction, self sabotage, broken relationships, or even just overwhelming emotions, I love being a part of their journey to help them get set free. And that's why we are here. I really love to get to be a part of that process for people. So that's why I'm
mhm.
here.
Yeah, and that's really honestly why we're here.
Yeah.
Because when you're experiencing something like this in your own life, you feel that freedom that comes to that. It's something that really you start thinking about, gosh, I would love to see other people experience this. And so, like Vicky, I also had a life-changing experience going through the grief recovery program. And I would honestly even go so far as to say that it's transformed every relationship that I have in my life, especially in our marriage. And although I could share a lot about that, I'll just simply say that, in marriage, you have these triggers that develop within the context of the relationship, but those triggers are actually related to other stuff. It's related to things that come from your childhood or other experiences that
Mhm.
introduced grief or trauma or loss. And so that creates a trigger point that then now you're in this marriage relationship and these things happen and they're immediately triggered. And that's where you start to say things to your spouse that you immediately regret. That's when you find yourself overreacting to things in a way that's much bigger than what's happening. And you start to see that. And if you don't deal with that, it's going to really have a pretty damaging impact on your relationship. And so that was an experience for me that really transformed my functional relationship with my wife and just with other people in general. But as Vicky and I did the deep healing work on the foundational relationships in our lives, it was really the healing we experienced and the tools that we learned that changed the way we communicated with each other. And we had a greater capacity to forgive. There was more compassion. There was really the ability to truly listen and honor each other, which, frankly, as simple as that sounds, man, you can just change a lot with just
Yeah.
listening to people. Um, but Vicky and I are both advanced grief recovery specialists. We have a combined 26 years of experience, and we've guided thousands of people through life's toughest challenges to experience true healing. And that's why we're here, because we love this and we love seeing that transformation in the lives of other people. And when other people get free from the unresolved grief in their life, they are free to experience the fullness of where they are going to next. And that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So we're going to talk for a minute about the hidden root of addiction. So if it hasn't been clear, till now, we believe that unresolved grief is the hidden root of addiction. So let me explain a little bit of what I mean. So when we carry the unprocessed emotional pain from our childhoods into adulthood, we also bring with it our coping and survival skills. And these skills rely on things like substances or food, work, sex, video games, shopping, even codependency. Huge is a big, big tool that we bring in. And basically, it's really anything that helps us avoid the pain that we're feeling. We can focus on someone else or we numb out to do that. So, but eventually, these coping mechanisms become our norm and we build our lives around them. So we attract people into our lives in that, or we get involved in relationships and we build around those coping mechanisms. And a lot of times, and some of the time as we grow up, those coping mechanisms can become full-blown addictions. But for most of us, they become what we might call functioning addictions. And that's just reliable ways to numb, distract, or avoid painful emotions. So, but what happens is you wake up one day and realize that you're trading your dreams and your desires for comfort, and it just isn't worth it. That comfort is very fleeting, and it's also oftentimes filled with shame, self hatred, anger, resentment, unforgiveness. And as a result, we can enter into a cycle of victimhood and what we call mental poverty, like emotional and mental poverty, that will repeat itself. Until you heal the grief, these cycles will continue, even if you stop using whatever it is you go to. So traditional recovery programs, in our opinion, miss this critical piece because they tend to focus on behavioral change. So breaking bad habits, maybe avoiding triggers, or practicing self-control. But here's something that almost no one will tell you. If you don't address the grief, trauma, and emotional wounds underneath your addiction, you will always feel like you're fighting an uphill battle because maybe you stop drinking, but you replace it with workaholism. Or maybe you quit drugs, but you're still drowning in self sabotaging thoughts or anxiety or destructive relationships. We will literally sabotage the good things in our lives when we are connected to these old behaviors and coping mechanisms. It's really a crazy thing, but it's true. And actually, addiction to unhealthy relationships, like attention from the opposite sex, these things, they all have the capacity to become addictions in their own and create incredible trauma and chaos in our lives.
Yeah. And addiction isn't just a choice. I love this quote because it's not just a choice or a chemical dependency. It's a desperate attempt to escape the relentless pain of unhealed loss.
Mm,
I, I think it's just good to just sit on that for a second because this is not a personal failure. It's not an issue of willpower, and it's certainly not who you are. For too long, addiction has been labeled as the problem when in reality, it's a response. It's a way that your heart and mind have tried to survive deep, unresolved pain. Maybe that pain comes from childhood wounds that never had the space to heal. Maybe it's loss or trauma, betrayal, a lifetime of suffering emotions and then stuffing them down because you were never taught how to process them. Addiction isn't some random occurrence that we just sort of we're going about our business one day and then we stumble over it, accidentally. It's a response. It's a response to unprocessed grief, the kind of grief that doesn't just only come from losing a loved one, but from losing parts of yourself, from losing your sense of safety, your dreams, or even the belief that you're worthy of love and connection. And here's the truth: you are not your behavior. I'm going to say that again. You are not your behavior. We're not here to focus on symptoms. We're not here to label you based on whatever coping mechanisms you've adopted. We're here to focus on healing what led you there in the first place. Because when you heal the wound, the behavior no longer controls you. And that's what this journey is about. It's not judgment, it's not labels, but real healing, real freedom. And it starts with having compassion for what you've been through and then giving yourself permission to heal.
yes. So you can't step into your life purpose, into what you desire, truly desire, while carrying the weight of grief. First, you need freedom from the pain of grief, trauma, and loss. And then you have the freedom to experience life to the full. So, we believe that transformation happens in two phases. So, first is the freedom from the things keeping you stuck: grief, loss, trauma, and then the self sabotage that comes. And then you get the freedom to live the life you are meant for with peace, purpose, connection, and joy with those things. So, a lot of times, recovery programs will try to get you to step into freedom without first releasing the weight of your past. But we believe that's why most people stay stuck. You do have to deal with that. And we definitely want to encourage you that it is possible to not stay stuck. And we really want to help you do that.
Yeah, because you don't have to, which is
Mm-mm.
kind of good news. you know?
Ah, very
um,
good.
and healing doesn't have to be complicated. You will never, ever hear us say that it's easy, but it is simple. In fact, healing really comes down to three simple but powerful steps. And these steps will take you beyond just, quote unquote, managing addiction and actually into a life where you experience real freedom. So let's just sort of briefly walk through each step together. Step one, you acknowledge and process your grief. Step two, you heal the emotional wounds at the root of your pain. And then step three, you rewire your beliefs and habits for true freedom. And Vicky's going to get into that in a little bit more detail here.
Yeah. So the first step, acknowledge and process your grief. This step is critical. The first step is to stop running from your grief and start acknowledging it. So, grief isn't just about death, it's about any loss. Hold on. More people. This is awesome. Um, so it's not just about death, like Dan had mentioned. It's about any loss. And sometimes that can even be loss of relationships, lost time, lost opportunities, and even the loss of who you once were. So ignoring grief doesn't make it go away. It just buries it deeper. And that's where it will leak out into these kinds of addictions that we're talking about. It will create self-sabotage, anxiety, and even ultimately an emotional numbness because it's just you have to live that way just to numb out. But when you start processing your grief, then you remove the need for those unhealthy coping mechanisms. And we have the very best method to guide you through this. It's an incredibly structured and thorough way. So, the takeaways for step one are you can't heal what you don't face. Grief doesn't just go away, it waits until it's addressed. And processing grief helps you stop numbing and start truly living. And that brings us to step number two.
So, step number two is that true freedom comes from healing the wound, not just changing the behavior. And at this point, we've already talked about how addiction isn't the real problem, it's simply a response to the pain. So the real work isn't just about stopping the behavior, it's about healing the wound that's underneath it. And for so long, you may have tried to do something to push the pain aside or ignore it or just move on. But the truth is, you can't move on from pain you haven't healed. Grief, trauma, loss, these don't just disappear one day. They don't just go away. They're actually stored in your body. There's a sidebar, a great book called The Body Keeps Score. That's phenomenal, just sort of how it talks about that. But these get stored in our body, in our nervous system, in our thought patterns. It
Mm,
literally shapes the way that we react to stress, relationships, and even success that we happen to get. So think of it like this. If let's say you broke your leg, but never let it heal properly, you might be able to walk again, but with pain. You're probably going to be limping. And over time, that unhealed injury is going to affect everything else about your body, your posture. It's going to limit your mobility, even parts of your body that are now compensating for the
mm,
weakness in your leg. Emotional wounds work exactly the same way. If we don't heal them, they don't just go away. They actually shape the way we live, the way we love, the way we cope. And this is why addiction, self-sabotage, unhealthy coping mechanisms, this is why they become such a struggle. Because instead of healing the original pain, we keep reaching for something that is going to numb or help us avoid or distract us from that pain. But real freedom comes when you heal the wound at the root, at the
mm,
root. And this isn't just about, kind of reliving your pain. It's really about releasing it so that it no longer controls you. It's about acknowledging that what happened to you was real, that the loss, the trauma, the grief that you carry, it matters, that you deserve to stop carrying it alone. And so healing isn't, erasing your past or forgetting that it ever happened. It's about making peace with it so that you can finally move forward. And
mm.
so takeaways from step two, you can't just move on from pain you haven't healed. Unprocessed grief gets stored in your body and mind until you face it. And lastly, healing is about releasing the pain so it no longer controls you.
Yes, and that brings us to step number three, which is rewire your beliefs. So, like we have said, we believe that freedom from the past gives us freedom to step fully into where we're going to go next. And healing grief isn't just about letting go of pain, it's about making space for something greater. When you release the unresolved grief that has shaped your thoughts, your emotions, your behaviors, something very powerful happens. Clarity replaces confusion. Peace replaces inner conflict. And momentum replaces sabotage. I think those are so worthy of repeating
Yeah.
because this is the true desire of where we want. We want to have clarity over confusion and peace over that inner conflict and momentum over a self-sabotage. So we want to help you feel that you're no longer fighting against yourself. And when you feel that way, you are finally free to move forward. So if for a long time, you might even not even realize that unresolved grief is like an invisible weight and it keeps you in cycles of self-sabotage. A lot of times it'll show up like second guessing yourself or avoiding opportunities, numbing out emotions, or feeling stuck, no matter how much you want to change. But when that weight is lifted, everything shifts and you're able to engage with life fully without these old patterns pulling you back. This is actually the process actually rewires your brain and will create new neural pathways. It really does this. So the freedom that you gain becomes your new default. So you're not always fighting yourself and going back to old behaviors. You have this clarity in the moment that you're very aware of what's happening and you're able to choose something different and you have a new default. So the takeaways from this step are healing removes the weight that has been keeping you stuck. The clarity brings momentum, so you no longer have to fight yourself. And this breakthrough actually has the power to rewire your brain for lasting change.
Yeah.
Truly, it does. And so the outcome of this is so powerful, and talking about what it looks like to experience freedom from these things, we wanted to take a moment to explore this outcome, to think about what freedom 2 would look like for you. So what would it feel like to trust yourself? What would it feel like to build relationships without fear? What about to pursue your dreams without sabotaging them? So just let your mind wonder for a moment. What would this freedom 2 feel like for you?
Mm. Yeah.
Very powerful.
Yeah. So now that you have a little bit of an understanding how grief and addiction are deeply connected, I've got a question. Are you ready for real freedom? And it might be a tougher question than you think, because when we get comfortable with the pattern of life, even a painful one, at least it's familiar,
Yeah.
at least it's comfortable, at least we know how the story ends. And even though we desperately want to break out of it and get free of it, sometimes it's actually a tough question to answer. Are we ready for real freedom? Vicky and I, we believe the grief recovery program is the best, most effective way to heal the wounds that are at the root of your struggles and to finally break free from addiction and self-sabotage. This is something we've experienced in our own life. We're not talking about this theoretically. Um, and this isn't just another recovery method. We believe it's the missing piece, because when you heal your grief at the core, then you are able to break free from addiction and self-sabotage. The actions follow, but it has to start at the core. And so our personal coaching is really designed to help you experience life with a sense of strength and with a sense of resilience. And so if you are ready to transform your journey, then we just want to show you a little bit more about how this program can change your life.
Yes.
Your path to healing and transformation looks a little bit like this, right? So this is an 8-week one-on-one Zoom coaching program where we will work together with you to help you heal from the wounds of your past, to break through free from the false and limiting beliefs that you've been struggling with, and basically everything else that we have been talking about so far. So we'll meet weekly on a 90-minute Zoom call to work through the Grief Recovery Handbook, and you will have ongoing support throughout our 8 weeks together. So let me just take a moment to say that if you are here as one of our valued alumni, you're somebody that's already gone through this program, we would also love to invite you to the next step in the healing journey of grief recovery, which are the alumni sessions. And we'll talk about those in a little bit.
So we wanted to just really think about the real value here because when you consider what is at stake, your relationships, your general happiness, and even your future, you begin to see just how valuable this process is. And we've personally spent several years and thousands of dollars on therapy, self help books, seminars, programs, and never really experienced the transformation that we had with the grief recovery method. So, the real world value of this program is massive. And we do want you to experience that for yourself.
Yeah.
So, we want you to take a minute and think about the relationships that currently hold pain for you. Think about the relationships that you wish could be better or at least different than they are right now. And think about what it would feel like to show up differently at home with the people that mean the most to you. What would it feel like to be fully engaged in your life and be able to be fully engaged in the lives of others? And we want you to really let that sink in because it is absolutely possible to come from a place of truth and vulnerability, which obviously we're not talking about being happy all the time. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about being real, and really being present with yourself and the people that you love. Because man, is time goes like this. It really truly does. Um, and we know that we can only change ourselves. We can't change anyone else. We can't change anyone else. So when you do that work of emotional healing, it will transform every relationship because you are the common denominator of every relationship in your life. So there's a huge impact, right? When you focus on really this kind of healing for yourself. And it starts with the relationship that you have with yourself. So if you are struggling with some, self-hatred, self-loathing, any kind of shame, anything like that, I implore you to think about this because I promise you it will help you and it will meet you right where you are. And just like Dan said, it's helping you gain an entirely new level of emotional resilience. So what comes along with that, what comes along with being present in the moment is an ability to establish boundaries. Those are impossible to have when you're not able to be present in the moment. And those will help enable you to be honest with yourself and with others in a respectful and healthy way without being emotionally triggered. There's so much that we could talk about that we don't have time to here. Um, I mean, everything that we're saying, we could go deeper and deeper in, but just to give you like kind of that 40,000 view, that 40,000 foot view, we want to help you be present and be able to be honest with yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I just want to take a minute to break down the total value of this program for you. There's a 30-minute consultation that you get. It's valued at $100. There's 8 weeks of 90-minute one-on-one Zoom coaching calls with online support that's valued at $1,200. And that brings the total value to the program to $1,300. But we do have a special offer for everybody who is on the webinar with us because we appreciate you joining us and being with us here. And Vicki is going to actually talk about that next.
Yeah, so today we have a special offer. If you are ready to take the next step, we want to offer $100 off right off the bat to help you really jump in and take the 8-week program, which is normally 1,200. And so we wanted to also make the consultation free, where whatever you need, we can talk through your schedule, where you are right now. We love hearing your story and we love helping meet you right where you are. So that saves $200 right off the bat. So we love to create for you a personal roadmap. This program is amazing and it what we love is how it meets everyone where they are. So it's a personalized roadmap to guide you on your healing journey. And like Dan said, you can also call and set up a free consultation if you are an alumni and you do want to talk about those next steps of going even deeper with the tools that you learned in the program.
Yeah. So dealing with, painful emotions is scary. Obviously, like if it were easy, we wouldn't, there's be no such thing as addictions, right? If this were
Right.
just easy, we wouldn't ever have any need to, not feel this stuff. So dealing with painful emotions is a scary thing, and there's just no way to sugarcoat that. But just try this thought exercise with me. So if this program, if all it did, if all this program did was help you to heal the unresolved grief that's been holding you back from showing up as the person that you've always wanted to be, wouldn't it be worth it? If all this program did was just equip you with the tools to create a life where you were thriving, growing, and living in deeper connections with the people you love, a life where you felt safe and connected and emotionally grounded, would it be worth it? Imagine what your life could be like if you healed those wounds and experienced this kind of transformation in your relationships. And the good news is that you don't have to imagine that. This is not some pie in the sky, blowing sunshine around kind of proposition, because grief recovery will do that for you and a lot more. And so I just want to go even one step further. Take a moment to consider the cost of staying exactly where you are right now. Consider the cost of continuing to struggle with self sabotage, with damaged relationships, and unresolved grief. Because it's really an investment in you, and you are totally worth it. These are just some of the concerns that we've heard, and I think it's a good idea to just sort of address them head on, because this is stuff, and you might have a concern yourself, and um, please give us that question in the chat or when we get in the Q&A. But these are some of the concerns that people have shared with us, and you might very well have some of these same concerns. Like some people, feel like, I'm not sure this will work for me. You know, fair. I will say this, that everyone we've worked with who's fully committed and completed the grief recovery method has experienced transformation. Everybody that's fully committed to it, like anything else, if you don't show up, if you don't put your best into it, yeah, but everybody that shows up is like, I want to experience this, has they have experienced that transformation. Did you want to throw anything there, honey?
Um, yeah, definitely. And we're always happy to try to talk about any questions that you might have.
Yeah.
One of the things that we've heard a lot is, do I have to go back? Do I have to deal with all that? Like, I'm afraid to deal with my grief, and that makes so much sense. It can be a very scary process. A lot of times we've learned to survive by not going back and feeling those feelings, right?
Right.
But the truth is, we don't move forward until we process that, until we really process our grief and our losses. In fact, one of the things that the grief recovery method teaches is that unresolved grief is undelivered communication of an emotional nature. And when you think about that, when you are able to connect to your emotional truth and deliver that, what we say when we say deliver, say it out loud to a person that hears you and honors your story, amazing transformation happens in that. And this is not a program like a lot of therapy can be, where you're just discovering and you're just bringing up stuff. This is a program that is going to has specific steps where we talk about things, we process them, we never leave you there, and we never leave things open with this, like, without knowing what to do next. Absolutely not. So the process is so powerful, and you'll be shocked at how quickly that we move through and how quickly you feel that kind of relief.
Yeah.
So we don't want to stay stuck. We want
Right.
to process.
Yeah. Another thing people have said is they've said, I've tried everything. And there's a lot of pain even in that, because you feel like, wow, I've it isn't like I haven't tried to do something about it. It isn't like I haven't, made an effort. It isn't like I don't want things to, I just want things to stay the same. I'm trying to do something about it. And you just feel like you've already tried everything. And all I can tell you is this is different because it goes deeper. You're actually rewiring your thinking at both an emotional and a neurological level, without getting too far into the weeds on it, we have these neural pathways that are carved. When we have a certain thought pattern or habit, it just carves a pattern because it makes it easier. Our brain is always focused on how do I make things more efficient. And so it carves this pattern so all thoughts just naturally go into that channel and flow, right? Well, that's good, but what happens when those thoughts are negative? What happens when those thoughts are damaging, right? Well, it's just automatically flowing there. So what this is doing is this is disrupting that, and it's literally rewiring the brain. Um, Another thing that people have said that they're concerned about is like, why bring up the past when I just want to move forward? I feel that one. I hear this a lot, probably the most often because all of us have learned, until we process our stuff, all of us have learned to survive basically by whatever strategy that helps us not feel. Sometimes those strategies are like we talked about, it's we lose ourselves in some addiction, or we just sort of, distract ourselves. We have all kinds of, in fact, think about it. We actually call them coping skills
Yeah.
because we get so good at it, it becomes a skill, right? So I totally understand this idea of why bringing up the past when you just want to move forward. And again, we're not just talking about randomly rehashing stuff from the past. We're talking about making peace with it. But it has to be named in order to be made peace with, right? And so the truth is, we don't move forward until we process our wounds, our grief, our losses. In fact, we stay exactly where we are. And the last one that we hear too is, people are concerned about the cost, which, again, always makes sense. It's like I don't want to spend money on something and then like it doesn't work, because that nobody wants that feeling. You don't want to feel like you just sort of threw away money and you still feel just as bad as you did when you started. And all I can say is, just think about, what is it costing you to stay the same today, tomorrow, next month, next year? Everything that we learn costs something. And I don't think I can think of anything that's worth more than, the people that we love that are around with us. If we're parents, if we're spouses, boyfriend, girlfriend, just family. And it's worth making an investment in you, because this is an investment not just in you, but also in your family and in the legacy that you leave behind. And again, there are any other concerns, we love to answer your questions, because this is a tough thing. Like I said, these are scary things to have um, to try to manage, to try to address, and it can be really hard. And so we want to be here to be able to answer, whatever questions that you have.
Yes. So here's kind of the picture of what the grief recovery is. The method is a step-by-step action program. You are fully supported at all times, even between calls. We are always accessible. Keep in mind that everything that we ask you to do, we do first. We go first. We will show you. And you'll be amazed at how much transformation happens in 8 weeks. It's really amazing. Each session builds on the previous one, and it's amazing because it uncovers and heals so much that you can't even imagine right now. So our only resource that we use is the Grief Recovery Handbook. That is included, and that represents 40 years more, actually more than 40 years of research, and is considered the gold standard from and anything from grief and loss. So we want to say, take the leap. Your new life awaits. So the time to act is now. Don't wait another day to start your journey and your healing transformation. It's a powerful opportunity to change your life for the better. And it's never too early. We always say it's never too soon to start, and it's never too late. Ever, ever. So with whatever you are dealing with right now, sometimes people have an event that happens that brings them to the grief recovery method, and then you kind of start to do the work and you realize this is so much more than I realized that I was just coming for. So it's just amazing. This is a skill set that you will learn. It is a new skill set. We believe that this is an emotional skill set that we're not taught. And if you are a parent, we love the idea of what we say is healing two generations at once, because as a parent, you will then be able to model for your kids or your grandkids or your siblings or your spouse a healthy communication and a healthy way to process grief, loss, and trauma.
Yeah.
So we love this idea. I forgot I was going to put it on here. I might put it on here in a minute. But we wanted to give you guys our Calendly link. It'll be on in the chat. Also, you will get an email after. It takes a few hours for all of this to upload, but you will get an email sent to you. It's going to have the recording of tonight. It'll have links that you can schedule consultations with Dan or I. And also, we're going to be giving you an ebook that's going to have all the stuff that we talked about tonight, so that you can have a reminder of that, and to remember that you are not your behaviors, that you are not. And we just want to really share these things with you. There's a great quote from a writer named James Sherman who said, "You can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending."
Yeah.
Very, very
And
cool.
I just want to say one thing too. Vicky and I we're unapologetic in our support for grief recovery. We love it because we've experienced it. We've seen it change our own lives, our marriage, and the lives of other people. But I need to say this. Um, it only works if you are doing it for you. Like if you're doing it because maybe, a parent or a spouse or somebody's like kind of leveraging you into it, or you're feeling like pressured into doing it, or, it's the kind of thing, like it's amazing, incredible, and it absolutely works 100% if you want it for you. But if you're doing it for somebody else, or if you're kind of being coerced or leveraged into it, please don't do it.
Yeah.
Please don't. Because you're just not going to experience what you could from it. And again, you don't want to add to any you're already dealing with enough pain, right? That's why, we're in this situation in the first place. So I just encourage you with that. Like I said, we believe in it 100%. But that being said, it's not something that is going to be beneficial or helpful to you if you're being pressured into it, forced into it, coerced into it, leveraged into it, guilt tripped into it. That's just not. It's just not going to work. You really have to be like, I want this for me, and then go for it.
Yeah. And we have someone on tonight that has gone through grief recovery. And I was trying to get a message to her, but I'm going to put her on the spot. Jana, would you want to share a little bit about your experience?
Yeah, sure. I've known Dan and Vicky since the 90s, and we lost touch for about 20 years. And I called Vicky in September of last year, and I have gone to 12 steps. I've gone to therapy. I tried ketamine. I've been on medication. And honestly, when I talked to Vicky, I cried a lot and just, kind of told her my story and caught her up on my life. And she shared with me that she's doing this grief recovery. And so my husband and I signed up, and my husband Kenny, Dan was with Dan, and I was with Vicky, and we started this process. And I'm in a totally different place this year. And as I was sharing in the beginning, I'm an artist, and I've been in a very creative slump for a long time. And now I'm working on all kinds of new art. I feel like my relationship with myself and God is so much better. And, it really is simple. It's a simple method. It's of course it's not easy for us to go back in the past, but grief recovery makes it easy. And
Mm,
each week doesn't even really take that much time, and it takes so much less time than therapy. And it's just amazing how completing our communication and having somebody listen and the way that it's all done. has really changed my whole energy levels, my health. I mean, I still need to go get a massage. My back hurts from doing a bunch of work. It's not an end all everything, but I just feel so amazingly great. And I really haven't felt this way in a long time. I'm coming up on a 10th anniversary of going blind in March of this year. And that 10 years was a real hell for me, from medication that I took and all kinds of stuff. So I am a real advocate of this. I will continue doing it. I'm taking a little break right now because I was telling Vicky I feel so good that I don't want to go dip back into that pool of pain just yet, because I know it's going to help me more, but I'm just kind of, I'm kind of on the cloud right now, and I don't want to get off the rainbow yet. So,
Yes.
but yeah, thank you guys so much. I'm so so grateful, and I really encourage anybody. I am a true believer and a true, it worked for me, and I'm 62 years old coming up here, and I've been struggling for a long time and self-sabotaging and just not being able to get out of these patterns, and it's a new life for me right now, and I'm super duper grateful.
Oh, that's awesome, Jana.
That's
Thank
awesome.
you. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
and I think one of the things that's so powerful about it, and one of the points that we made, I think it was point 2 or 3, I can't remember, but the when you go from confusion to clarity, and when you go from momentum instead of sabotage, I mean, it's like learning how to live in freedom. And sometimes it's hard to even imagine that that's possible, but I just want to encourage you like that it really and truly is. And we really want to make this time available for you. We pretty much are done with what we wanted to share tonight. And so if any of you have any questions, feel free to open to unmute yourself and ask, or ask us in the chat, whatever you would like. We're so happy that you're here,
Yeah.
and we know that there can be a lot of questions. Mhm. And if you don't, that's okay too.
Yeah, if you don't, like maybe you have a question that you don't really feel comfortable, sharing in front of everybody else, that's fine. You can always, just book a consultation with us. It doesn't cost anything, and we can answer your questions or anything that you were sort of wondering about. So there's also that too. Um, you know, but we
Yeah.
do always want to make it available to you, whatever questions you have.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, Amy. Amy has her hand up.
Well, hi, how are y'all? Um,
Good.
I actually don't have a question, um,
Okay.
but my hand is up. And because I'm actually a certified grief recovery specialist as well. And
Awesome.
I saw y'all on the Texas, whatever that was the other night. But I just wanted to pop in and see how other people are doing it and all that kind of thing. And I also wanted to offer up, if it's okay, just um, a quick my own story of how
Mhm.
it really saved my life. There's some pivotal teachings out there, and this is one of them. And they all go in connection with each other, in my opinion. And there's so many that just kind of massage the surface, like you were saying. And I've had just extraordinary grief from birth. Just it wasn't just something that happened and then it's been 50 years later. It's been every month, every year. It's sustained. My whole family's gone now, dead. Um, just like so much. And just using this process, it totally, it totally saved my life. And I'm telling the truth. I would not say a lie. And but what it really gives me too is the opportunity to, each time I want to do, you know, a completion letter, it just opens for me another bud or another petal on my flower, because it's that much more self forgiveness and that much more just releasing, true releasing of being like plugged into a program that I don't want to be plugged into anymore.
Mm.
Oh, so good.
Yeah. And so just thank y'all. And I love what you're doing. I just popped in to support and to be here,
Oh,
whatever. So
Oh,
thank
thank
you,
you,
Amy. So
Amy.
appreciate that.
you're welcome.
That is so awesome. It made me think about when you said plugged into the program, made me think of unplugging from the matrix. Like
Yeah.
unplugging, and that's so awesome. Thank you very much for sharing. Would love to hear more of your story.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to connect offline. That's awesome. Yes. And one thing I can see that somebody it directly sent me a message here. One thing that I do want to say is that we can do payments. That was a question. The way that the process of payment works, you can pay in full, you can pay in 2 or 3 payments, and we're always open to working with you in that way with whatever kind of payment that you need, whether it's on a credit card or from Venmo. We pretty much take anything, and we're very much willing to work with whatever we can to help you do this process. Yes. So thank you for that question. And yes.
May I say something else?
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
It's
absolutely.
okay. Sorry, I don't want to talk too much. I just wanted to offer that this is something that was really important to me when I a friend told me about this grief recovery, and they were doing it at our church, and so I did it, and it was so wonderful that I repeated it the next time they offered it. Just because I just had to kind of get it more or whatever. But what I love and what I think is like value that continues to add value to our lives is that you can continue on. You don't have to keep repeating the class. You don't have to do like I did. You can do the series one time and just keep doing your letters with your facilitator or whoever, but that can go on the rest of your life.
Yes.
And so it's not like a therapist where you have to go and pay $150 every hour every time for the rest of your life. This is like jump starts your entire healing, and it just keeps going, and it's really free because you can get other people. You don't even have to pay for that part of it. And
Yeah.
I find that to be super authentic. It's not selly. It actually is offering this gold mine, this treasure of real healing, which
Yeah.
we need. I needed it, and I need it still.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that part about it.
Oh, I
Yeah.
agree. I do too. And I think that's one of the big things that sets it apart from kind of a traditional therapy is that this is an equipping program. So you are learning skills and you will be equipped with those skills. And yes, you will. There's a process that we do where we get complete with a relationship, emotionally complete with a relationship. And what Amy's talking about is that you do a letter in that. And so after you're all done, you can do the process in only the last 3 steps. And so you can work with someone like me or Amy or Dan, like you can work with someone, or you can take those skills and you can work with other people. We say do it with someone who's done the process because you want to be in a safe place. But she is so right. This is very different in that way that it's very much equipping you for skills, and you can always come back and do a little bit more work, but it is something that I use in my life every day. I use these skills every day because I feel like this way of learning how to emotionally process has served me more than anything else in my life.
Yeah.
So 100%. Thank you, Amy. That's really good.
Yeah.
Really, really good.
Thank you.
Yes. But that is, gosh, I wish I would have put this out there. I'm going to grab the links down if you want to add anything here. Um, I was thinking about putting our links in the chat. But
Oh,
if
okay. Oh, yeah.
anything that you wanted to add, I'm going to grab them really quick.
Well, no, I think it's just it's like I said in the earlier, it is hard because it's never easy to deal with emotions that are painful, and some of these emotions, um, especially when they come out of our childhoods, they're pretty deeply ingrained. And um, we have these intellectualizations that we do, where we'll kind of go, well, at least I don't have as bad at so and so. But everybody has whatever you grew up with, whatever you're dealing with, that's your normal.
Yeah.
And you're experiencing your normal at 100%. Just to give you an example, like one of the people that I was working with, and there's a process where you do something called a loss history graph, and you're just going through on a timeline, and you're naming, all these events in your life that were losses, that were right, these events. And he was, just to illustrate the point, like he was talking about how often his parents would hit him and abuse him, and all the names that they called him, and how he'd get put in a closet, and just like oh my God, I like, you can't believe what. And he was talking about it like you or I would talk about, I went to HEB today, and got some lettuce. And that's how, like, your normal is your normal. And like somebody else outside might listen to that and be completely horrified by the amount of pain that this young man had to go through. But for him, that was his normal. And
Mm.
that's the thing. And that's what I love about this program is it doesn't compare. It doesn't minimize. It just names. It names, it owns, and it honors. And I love that because we need that. We don't have very many experiences in this life where we're actually heard.
Yeah.
As simple as that is. Most of the time, our conversations are taking place with people who, God bless them, are waiting for us to finish whatever we're saying so they can say what they want to say. They want to be on the other end of having an answer for us. And so much of that has to do with the fact that because none of us really understands how to process our pain in a healthy way, we don't want anyone else who is unprocessed pain around us. We're uncomfortable enough with our own pain, much less have to deal with somebody else's. So we just want everyone else around us to get over it as quickly as possible so that we're not uncomfortable. And so it's really hard just to have space where you're listened to and heard. And I think that's one of the very simple and yet very powerful things about the process. And so anyways, I'm very grateful that you guys all came on with us. I know there's a lot of stuff you could be doing with your time.
Yeah.
And we're just grateful that you were here with us. And like I said, any questions you have, we'll answer. But like I said, if you Vicky put the links in the chat, just copy those down, because if you do have any questions that maybe you don't want to, ask in front of other people, set up some time with us, and we're happy to answer those questions for you. And
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And our website is freedomfromgrief.com. And that's the link that I gave you in this chat, because we've got a page there where both of our links are, they live there. So
Yeah.
you can book with either one. Um, and I also really want to say, if you are in a recovery program, it's really on my heart to speak to you from my heart. If you're not addressing the unresolved grief in your life, you are not getting to the root of your struggles. And until you face that grief, true freedom will remain out of reach. And I just really want to encourage you with that. That is my very, very strong opinion um, of really understanding that more and more. As I went through it, I went through therapy and got recovery from, I got sobriety, but man, there was very little what I would consider soundness of mind in that first 10 years of my sobriety. I wasn't drinking and I wasn't throwing up my food because I had an eating disorder as well that was very severe. But those behaviors had changed, but my thinking, the way that I sabotaged, oh my gosh, all of those things were still there, and it all completely changed when I did this process. I could say, like Amy, this literally did save my life in a lot of ways, because I don't want to live just white knuckling my life. And so we just want to encourage you guys, if you are especially working a program, it's such a place in my heart to help you to find real true freedom. So
Yeah.
with all of that, yes, thank you, Jana. Thank you guys so much for being here. It's really an
Yeah.
honor to see all your beautiful faces. And yeah, reach out, and we will see you guys soon. Next month, we will be on again, and we are going to be talking next month about attachment and how unresolved grief really feeds our attachment styles and attachment. So thank you, Amy. Yeah, thank you guys so much. It's great to see you all here. Have a beautiful and blessed night, and we will see you next time.
Bye, y'all.
Bye. Hi, Mandy. Hold on.
You're muted.
I'm going to.
Smart enough. Okay, figured it
Oh,
out.
there.